Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Remote Real Estate Investor. I'm Michael Albaum, and today I'm joined by Henry Washington. And Henry's an investor, and he's going to be talking to us about how he went from zero to like a gazillion doors in a very short amount of time and what he did to get there. So let's get right into it. Henry, what's going on, man? Thanks so much for coming on and hanging out with me, and I really appreciate you.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No, it's going to be a lot of fun. So I know a little bit about your background, but for those of our listeners who might not be familiar with the Mr. Henry Washington, give us the quick and dirty, who you are, where you're coming from, and what is it you're doing in real estate today?
Yeah, Henry Washington. I'm a real estate investor based out of the Northwest Arkansas market. So it's the northwest corner of the state. It's this like little unique bubble of an area. There's so much huge recession-proof industry here. So it's a lot of money in this little part of the country that makes this market pretty unique. And so I've been investing here 4.5 years. I'd say close to 5 years now. I bought my first house 5 years ago. And prior to that, I was a 9-to-5er I worked for Walmart. And so they're headquartered out here. It's one of the companies, that's based out here. And so I did data analytics and software development for them for 10 years. And, I made a great salary, and I also spent a great salary. And so I often found myself not having money before I was to get paid again. And, I think a lot of people find themselves in that situation. I guess the pivot for me came when I got married. Got married fairly quickly. My wife did not want to run out of money before we got paid again, and that was the first time where
reasonable request,
I guess. So, and so I started to realize that the path I was on financially wasn't going to provide me the life that I truly wanted, and I knew that. But when it was just me, like there was no, I was okay. I was like, whatever, I'll figure it out. But like when you have somebody else who's depending on you, a lot of those things become a lot more real. And so I had a panic attack one night after we tried to buy a house together, and I couldn't be on the loan because my credit was so bad. And the bank said, hey, you're going to ruin this for your wife if you guys want to be able to buy a house.
Wow.
And so then we had conversations as a couple about our future and what we wanted and kids and dream houses and, all the things new married couples talk about. And I was like, I can't afford any of this. It was just this unsettling realization that even though I did all the things society told me to do, I got the good grades, I went to the good schools, I got the good degree, got the good job, and I still couldn't do normal things, without an extensive amount of planning, budgeting, and it just was normal. Things were going to be difficult, and I didn't want life to be like that, and I didn't want her to feel like she was struggling by choosing me as her partner. And so had a panic attack, 3 a.m, woke up in a cold sweat because I was like, I got to figure out a way to make some money. And so I Googled, how can I make some money? And that's when real estate kind of hit me over the head, where really, really long story short is that's when I started to pay attention to the articles that were popping up about passive income and about building wealth and, all those buzzwords that we all hear all the time, but none of it seems to stick in our brains. Well, it started to stick, and I started to realize that owning real estate was feasible. I just never thought it was feasible before. I just thought super rich people and corporations own real estate. But stumbling across articles on Bigger Pockets and all these places and seeing that it's just regular people that have real estate and they're building wealth and they're retiring from their jobs. And I was just like, this is crazy. And I was like, I didn't know it was achievable. And so I just made a decision at 3 a.m. that I was going to figure it out, because I figured if all these people on the internet had figured out how to do it, there's no reason that I can't figure out how to do it. I'm a pretty smart guy. So I literally said, I'll just do this. and I had bad credit still, and I only had $1,000 in my savings account. So I didn't have any money. I had bad credit, but I made a decision that I was going to be a real estate investor. And, at the time, I'm sure that sounded like a crazy idea, but, now fast forward 5 years, I've got, we just counted yesterday, we've got 75 doors, and we flip 10 to 12 to 15 houses a year. And, I teach people how to be investors now, and I co-host a couple of Bigger Pockets podcasts, and life's taken a crazy turn in 5 years.
Dude, that's amazing. So, okay, I have so many questions. We're gonna get to only some of them in the episode. When you say we, and you're talking about we owning 75 doors, is that you and your wife? Or is that you and a partner? Tell me about that.
So when I say we, I'm referring to my wife and I. So my wife and I own the majority of our portfolio together. I have about 25 doors that I do have with a business partner that we bought early on in my investing career. Early on, I'm still early on in my business, but like in the first couple of years. And then I've got a few other doors that are in some partnerships, but it's a mix.
Okay,
love it. But the majority we own.
Okay. And so there's a pretty big gap in your story here, Henry, from the day that you woke up at 3 a.m. in the cold sweat with $1,000 to now having 74 doors. So fill in a little bit of that for us. And let's start with kind of that first deal. Yeah. I mean, what did you do? Because I think so many people listening to this right now are in a similar boat. They're like, what I'm doing isn't working. Mm-hmm. And I've just discovered that real estate investing, I've always thought it was for other people, but I realize it can now be for me. Yep. So walk us through, how do you get that first deal done?
Yeah, man. So we'll give a couple of mindset and a couple of practical pieces of advice. And so what I've learned through retrospect, I wasn't this smart when I actually did it. I didn't know what I was doing. But now that I've looked back,
you're in very good company.
I see what it was, right? And so I think the one thing that I did that led me to where I am today had nothing to do with buying real estate. It had everything to do with mindset. And I know people get all like, oh, it's not that easy. You can't just make up your mind and then you're rich. Like, you're right. You can't. But you can make up your mind that you're going to do whatever it takes to hit to your goals. Right? And so that's what people mean when they say the mindset changed their life. Because without the mindset, none of this was possible. And so for me, the thing that I did that led me here, the one thing was at 3 a.m, I decided I was going to be a real estate investor. I made a decision. I chose, right? Decide. The suffix of the word decide is side, like suicide or homicide. It means to kill off. There's no other option, right? It's option A or there's no option B. It's going to work or it's going to work, right? And when you decide, what you're doing is you're telling your brain that this is what it's going to be. So when we can't figure out how to do something, brain, go help me figure out how to do it, right? And you just open your mind up to helping you search for the answer, for the route, for the path, for the thing that you need to get around the obstacle. Like, our brains are powerful. They do that. Like, if you tell your brain, if you tell your brain that we're doing something, it's going to help you try to figure out how to do that. And I think that most people, when they go down a path of anything, a business or a new venture, fitness, whatever it is, like when you go down that path, most of us say, well, yeah, that looks cool. I'll give that a try, right? I'll try that out. And when you say you're going to try something, what you're telling your brain is like, we're going to do it until we don't know what to do anymore. And then we're not going to do it. Your brain is just not going to help you navigate the difficult parts. You didn't tell it to. You just told it you were trying it, and you did, right? And so I think the most powerful thing you can do is like truly make a decision in your heart and your mind, like no matter what. Option A, there is no option B. I knew I was going to be a real estate investor, period. I was going to figure it out. And so everything I did to that point, like all the subsequent decisions that were made with all that in mind, right? And so when I bumped into walls and obstacles and things, it was never like, well, I can't do it. It was just like, how are we going to get around this obstacle, right? There's got to be a way. People are doing this, right? And so I would say that's the biggest thing you can do is like really do some serious soul searching. Like are you interested in real estate or are you committed to real estate? Right. And if you're interested in it, that's cool. Do some research, see what's out there. Right. But being interested in it isn't going to get you to wealth. Being committed to it is. And if you're committed to it, that means you're doing it no matter what. Right. So,
yeah. And so walk us through like what you did. Like clearly at 3 a.m. you're committing to it. So like, what did you do next? Yeah,
that's a great question. I had no idea what I was going to do. And so I just
but you had to put it out to the world. You declared it.
Yeah, I put it out there. And then my thought process was like, all right, well, I don't know how to do this, but somebody here is doing it. Like maybe I can just find people who are doing it. And so I just started Googling like real estate investment groups, meetups, clubs. Like I did all the words I could find to find people who were into this kind of thing. There's knitting groups and there's dog walking groups and there's,
underwater
absolute backgammon groups. And like, I was like, there's gotta be some investor groups. Right. And so, and so that's what I did. I went and I found every investment meetup group, club, association, wherever there was investors in a room in my area, I got in the room. Because I've always, even before I was an investor, I've always believed like, who you choose to be around lets you know who you are, right? We're the sum parts of the people who are closest to us, right? We naturally as humans take on the characteristics of those who are closest to us. It's just human nature. We can't help it, right? And so I was like, well, I'll just get around other investors and then it'll do a few things for me. It'll start to show me like how they're doing it. So maybe I can do it similarly, or how they're doing it. So maybe I don't want to do what they're doing, or it'll start to show me what's possible, because we, like as people, we determine what's possible based on what we see those closest to us doing. Right. Our views are limited to the knowledge that we have about a particular subject based on the people that are around us. Right. And so like, I knew that it seemed daunting, and I knew I had no idea how I was going to buy a property, but I knew if I got around people who were buying properties all the time, it wasn't going to seem as daunting anymore. And so I would say the next best thing you do is just surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do. You will naturally start to take on those characteristics. And remember, you told your brain you're going to figure it out. And so as you're in these rooms and you're hearing these people talk and you're networking with these people and you're starting to understand what's happening, your brain is listening. It's actively listening for the things that you need to know that's going to help you down your path, right? It's I always say it's the red truck. I forget what they call it, Pavlov's law or somebody, like where it's like you buy a red truck and then every other truck you see is red. It's the same thing, right? You've told your brain, I'm going to be an investor. And so now every time someone, like, it still happens to me. Like if I'm out to dinner and I hear somebody say something like rental, I'm like, oh, who's rental properties? Let's talk.
There it is again.
Like my brain is actively listening for it. Like, and then they're like, yeah, I rented this boat. And I'm like, that's not what I want to hear. Right. Like, your brain, it's going to help you out. Right. And so when you go and you surround yourself, you're not only learning new strategies, but you're meeting the people who are going to be able to help you down that path. That business partner I mentioned I own 25 doors with. I met him in a real estate group. I met him at that same real estate group that I Googled and found that first day I had the panic attack. The title company that I've used for almost every single closing I've ever done, I met through a connection at that real estate investment meetup, and they have been a godsend to my business. I've met several contractors that I've used in that group, the banks that I've used that have financed my deals at almost 100% sometimes I found in that group. And so like you are building your network, you are learning what to do, and you're putting yourself in a position to be successful. You're putting yourself in a position to be ready when the opportunity calls, when the opportunity knocks. We look at people sometimes and we say, yeah, Henry's a real estate investor, but he just fell into it, because my first deal came from a friend of mine who heard I was buying houses. And so from the outside looking in, it just looks like, oh, your friend just called you and had this great deal. That's not going to happen to everybody.
I don't have any friends that own real estate. Yeah.
Right. that happened because I put myself in a position for things like that to happen and for me to be ready for them when they happen. That happened because I surrounded myself with other investors. I just started telling people I was an investor. I had never done a deal, didn't know how to do a deal. I only had $1,000 and I had bad credit, but I started telling people I'm a real estate investor. That's what led my buddy to call me and tell me, hey, I'm in a tough spot with this property. I need somebody to buy it, right? And so it wasn't luck, it's positioning. You've got to position yourself to be ready to take advantage of opportunities. And so by just getting in the room, and it's not just going to one meetup, because I think that's what a lot of new investors do. Everybody knows like, yeah, real estate investment meetups. But what happens is they go to one meeting and then they go to maybe the second meeting the next month. And then when they're going to go to the third month, like life kicks in again, right? And they've got a kid thing, or they got a dog thing, or they got a work early the next day and they don't go. And so the consistency is not there. And when the consistency is not there, people don't know your face. People don't know who you are, what you're trying to do. They don't know how to help you. Investors will genuinely try to help you if you show up over and over again. You know who else shows up over and over again? People doing deals. And when they see you in there and they see you're hungry, you're trying to learn, you're making sacrifices, you're in there trying to contribute, man, people will help you. They will help you. They'll send you deals. They'll send you contacts. They want you to be successful. It's a super cool group of people. So very, very long-winded way of saying, get into every real estate investment group you can get into, because that is 100% what I did. And it really started to change the trajectory. You know, I listened to a story. I can't remember who it was, but it was a guy whose first deal was a large apartment building. And I remember hearing him get interviewed on a podcast, and they said, well, what made you buy a, 150 unit apartment building for your very first deal? That's crazy. People work their way up to that. They don't do that. And he said, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to. All my friends that I hung out with all bought apartment buildings. That's what they did. And so that's just what I did. Right. And I just thought that's like, boom, that's it. Like, you have to surround yourself like with people who are doing what you want to do well, because it will just make it seem like that much so achievable. If you tell somebody who's never, ever bought a house ever that they can go buy an apartment building, they'll look at you crazy. Right. But if you tell somebody who's never bought a house ever, but all they hang out with is dudes who buy but Grant Cardones, then they'll be like, yeah, I'm going to buy 5 apartment buildings. Right. Like that's right. Because they know what's possible.
Yeah. I think that's such a good point. And then also with regard to like getting around meetups and going to these events, I think the investor that goes to 1 or 2 and then the life thing comes up, they I think also have the mindset of like, oh, well, I don't own a property yet. Yeah. So like, this isn't working, or I don't have anything to add. Like, what's the point? And I'm like, no, like cart before the horse, my friend.
Absolutely. It's interesting. So I went to Hawaii with my family, and then I met up with a local real estate investor out there who I just happened to follow on social media a lot. And so I was like, well, let's meet up. And then we had then it turned into this whole like meetup, and people were like coming from all over to go to this meetup. And I went with my family and a good buddy of mine's family. We all went together and got this big, Airbnb property.
Right on.
So all of our kids were hanging out. It was super fun. Right. And that guy, he and his wife, I've like been trying to drag them along into real estate investing, kicking and screaming for like several years. And so I finally got them to buy a property, one that I had found, and then I sold to them. Right. And so like they bought it and I manage it for them. Right. So it's like, they're kind of like their foot's kind of in the water,
right.
But they own a property. Right. But I don't think that they see themselves as real estate investors. I think that they just see themselves as, folks who happen to have a rental property. And so we went to this meetup, and my buddy, like, I remember, he said to me, it kind of seemed like maybe, I don't want to say that he kind of like felt out of place, but it kind of felt like there was a bunch of investors there, and then he was there with me, not like he was there as an investor as well.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And so, when I talked to him afterwards, I was like, what'd you think? And he was like, yeah, it's kind of cool. Some people were doing some stuff. And I was like, dude, you belong here.
You're one of those people.
You're an investor.
Yeah.
I was like, over half the people I talked to never bought a property. You own more property than half the people there, right? You fit there more than half of those people did, right? And so it's all just like, it's like mindset is so huge. Is like, if you see yourself as an investor, like the opportunities follow, the relationships follow. And like, if you approach that meeting with the mindset of you're just a person who's not an investor, then you won't get as much out of it as if you approach it as I'm an investor and I'm here to help some people and gain some information and some knowledge and grow as a person and grow as an investor. And those things, you'll get those things.
Yeah. I just took Henry this class about mindfulness and self-compassion. And it was a 6-week course. It was amazing. And they said, okay, I want you to all think about how, if your friend is going through a hard time, how do you talk to that friend? What's your body language? What's your tone? What kind of words you're using? And then think about that. Okay, that was super easy. And then they said, now think about how you talk to yourself if you're having a problem. And we're like, dumb idiots who you beat yourself up. And it's the same thing. Like, I feel like so many people look around a room and think every one of these people has something to offer me, but they don't think that about themselves. So right. I love that you shared that story. And has your friend since changed their tune a little bit? Did it click a little bit for him?
He's closing on his second property tomorrow.
Yes. I love it. I love it.
Yep.
Well, Henry, I think so many people listening to this, especially who are just starting out or who maybe have a couple deals under their belt, look at you, 74 units, and you're like, holy crap, that's like not even the top of the mountain. That's a whole nother mountain range, right? That's the Everest. And so something I hear all the time, and I'm sure because you coach and mentor folks as well, you hear it too. Well, what about the 10 loan limit? Like, how do you have 74 doors? How do you get beyond 10 loans? Like, talk to us a little bit about what the scalability looks like and how should people be thinking about that? Because I think a roadblock that I hear, stumbling block that people share with me is like, yeah, I can do 1, 2, whatever through 10, but then what do I do? Like, I really want to blow this thing up. How do I make it big? So talk to us a little bit about how you've been able to scale so massively.
Yeah. Great question. So you need to solve 2 problems in order to scale, right? You need deal flow, right? So you need a consistent flow of deals that you can purchase under market value, right? So you need deal flow and you need money flow. You need money to be able to buy these properties. If you can solve the problem of getting enough deal flow coming in and having the money to be able to close on them, then you can scale as fast as you want to. I know that's like, yeah, Henry, of course you need money, right? I get it, right? But
just turn on the money pipeline.
With buying real estate, there's a bajillion ways to buy property. And so they only teach us the traditional ways to buy property, which is some conventional loan, right? Where you can put 25% down and buy a property. But that's just one loan product. There are hundreds of loan products that you can use. You have to go educate yourself on what they are so that you know all the tools at your disposal. And so what I learned early on, because we never got into talking about that first deal, but when I bought that first deal, what happened was I told you my buddy was in a tough spot with a property. Mm-hmm. He heard I was buying property and was like, hey, come buy this house. If you can buy it, I need to sell it. I need to make this amount of money. I need X for this property. And because that gives me the exact amount of dollars I need because I have to go buy this property for my church. And I was like, okay. He was like, so I'll sell it to you for $115 because it gives me the money I need. It's worth like $150, $160. I don't care about that. I just need this amount of money. As long as you can close on it in 30 days, you can have it for this price. He was like, can you buy it? I said, yes. I had no idea how to buy it.
The price wasn't $1,000. How were you going to come up with $115?
Right. But most people would do that. Most people would go, I would love to buy it, but I don't have the down payment because they think they need it, right? We make decisions for other people all the time, right? We decided we can't buy it. Who told you that? Did a bank tell you that? Nobody told you that. How do you know? Like, go figure it out first. And so I told him, I was like, yeah, I can buy it, even though I had no clue. But I had that network of investors and I went to them and I said, well, how are you guys doing this? And they told me about go talk to a bank, and see what they can do. And so I went to the closest bank to my work, right? Which happened to be this small local bank. And I went in and I walked in and I had the contract in my hand. I said, hey, I need to speak with somebody who could potentially do a loan for this investment property.
Who's your money person?
Yeah. Who's the guy that gives people dollars? I want some of those dollars.
I would like some, please.
Yes. And they looked at the contract and they went, this is this is a really good deal. And I was like, will you give me the money for this really good deal? And so they lined me up with the commercial lender. The commercial lender told me, he was like, look, we'll lend you 85% of the purchase. We'll give you all the money you need to renovate it as well, as long as you can come up with a 15% down payment. And I was like, he was like, do you have the 15% down payment? And I was like, yeah, for sure. Right. And so I went to my, I told them yes, because I wanted the money. And then I went to the real estate investors and I was like, hey, people who do this all the time, how the heck are you coming up with these down payments? And they just started like, the guy who was actually my business partner now that I met in that room, he was the one brainstorming with me. He was like, hey, try this. And what about this? And what about that? And I was like, no, none of those are going to work. And he was like, oh, well, you can borrow against your 401k. And I was like, what's that mean? I don't want to pay penalties. He was like, no, you can borrow. He was like, so you can take a loan out against your 401k and then you have to pay yourself back with interest. But it's your money, so you get the interest too. And your employer will just take the money out of your paycheck and they take it pre-tax. So it reduces your taxable income. And I was like, and then you buy the real estate asset with it. And then the cash flow pays back. So your tenants are essentially paying back your 401k loan with interest to yourself and you reduce your taxable income. And I was like, that's a cheat code. Who, like, that's a thing?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah. And I was like, cool. Now I got to go find a 401k. And so I went. And so I told you I wasn't good with money.
I love it.
So my wife obviously was the smart one with money. And I went to her and I said, hey, remember that time when I said we were going to be real estate investors? Well, we need to borrow $20,000 from your 401k so we can buy this property. And she said, let's do it. And we did. And that's how I got that first property. Right. And so all that to say, like, most people don't know you can do that. They don't know about 401k loans. They don't know that there's a commercial bank, there's a commercial loan product that you can use that only requires a 15% down payment, not a 25% down payment.
And you can use it on single family homes.
And you can use it on single family homes. And they don't care where your down payment comes from. Like if I would have tried to do a conventional loan and then I told them I was going to borrow the money from my 401k, like I would have had to give them like blood samples and like my firstborn child.
Yeah,
and like the money would have to be in my bank account for like 72 years before like it's officially my money to be able to use. There's all these hurdles, right?
Yeah.
But with a commercial loan, they don't have those hurdles. They're like, I don't care. If you can bring the down payment, we will loan you and we'll give you the renovation money. And I was just like, right. But because I told myself when my buddy said, hey, can you buy this? And I said, yes, even though I didn't know how, it forced me to go figure out how. Right. And so there's more loan products than people say. So yes, the commercial loans from small local banks, you can have as many as they'll let you have. Like it's up to them. Mm-hmm. And what you're doing. So small local banks, what I learned, because after I bought that property, the bank called me and they were like, hey, that property that you bought, it was a really great deal and there's equity in it. So we want to give you a line of credit against that equity so you can go bring us more deals like that. And so they did a HELOC for me and I ended up with access to like another 30 grand. And like 90 days before that, I had a panic attack, right? And now I had an asset that was paying me and the bank gave me access to $30,000. And so like, now I could go rinse and repeat and do that again. And what I learned through that process and what I want people to understand is like, when you're a real estate investor, like small local banks, in order for them to stay in business, they don't do like conventional loans to stay in business. That's what big banks do. Small banks loan money to small local businesses, right? They're lending money to small businesses in order to stay afloat. And most small businesses fail, right, within the first 5 years. So if they have to choose between loaning to like a new food truck versus loaning to a guy who's buying a property at $115,000 that's worth $150,000, if we both fail, in the food truck, they get access to like a food truck that they can sell for not the value it was worth.
Scrap metal.
Right. Right. Or they can get an asset of a house that they can sell, even though they lended $115,000, but they could probably sell it for $130,000. It was worth $150,000. Mm-hmm. They'll make more money if I foreclose, they make more money on me than they do if I just pay my interest payments. So it's like they want to loan to you. And so you just have to go out and do the research and find out what loan products are out there and available to you. There's more than just what's out there. And so don't take what you hear as fact. you've got to go do the research and you've got to talk to people who are actually doing it. A lot of the times when people say, well, there's a 10 loan limit and my debt to income ratio is not good. Well, you don't know that. You haven't spoken to a lender that told you that your debt to income was bad. You just assume it is. Like, go figure it out for yourself.
Yeah. And even if you do find that to be true, like there are tons of people with bad credit and high debt to incomes that are still investing in property. So like go find a way.
All the time.
Yeah. Henry, we're running short on time here, but I want to circle back to something that you said. You said buying property under market value at the deal flow. Why is that so important? What about all the people out there that's like, I want to buy turnkey. That's my strategy.
So for me, it's about multiple exit strategies. Because especially when you're new, there's so many things you don't know that can cost you money, right? You don't know how to estimate rehab values as well. You don't know how to estimate ARVs or after repair values as well. You might not truly know what a really good deal looks like yet. And, you don't know how long it's going to take you to renovate a property. You may think it's going to take you 90 days, but it's probably going to take you 6 months, right? And all these things end up costing you money. The best protection from all these mistakes isn't to get better at doing those things. I mean, those things do help, but the very best protection is cushion, is how much you bought the property for versus how much you're going to be able to disposition that property for. And so the better deal you buy, the more exit strategies you have. If I buy a house that's worth $200,000 and I pay $100,000 for it, I may be able to wholesale it to somebody for $105,000, $110,000, or I can wholesale it and stick it on the market and sell it for $125,000, $135,000, $145,000, or I can spend $30,000, $40,000, fix it up and sell it for $300,000 or $200,000, or I can take that good lead and not close on it, not assign it, and just call another investor and say, hey, it's a phenomenal lead. I got them. They agreed to pay, to let me pay $100 for this. You can take this lead and just give me $2,000 after you close, right? Like that's 5 different ways I just told you that you can monetize on a good deal. And the only reason that thing is possible is because you bought it right. And so if you do it turnkey, your only exit strategy is to keep it as a turnkey rental because you're paying market value for it. You probably can't turn around and sell it for more than what you're paying for it. Plus there's a tenant in it, which is going to make it harder to sell unless you sell it to another turnkey investor. So the only exit strategy you have is to continue to rent it. But if you buy a deal under market value, you can rent it, you can flip it, you can wholesale it, you can wholesale it, you can just bird dog it to somebody. And so it's just better protection.
I love it. It's like that game, Bop It. Wholesale it, flip it, spin it. That's like $1 million real estate investor game idea right there.
Yeah, right. That's it, right?
Let's trademark it. We're going to blow it up.
I'm in.
Henry, this has been amazing, man. I'm sure we could chat all day, but I want to let you get out of here. For people that want to continue the conversation, reach out to you, ask you questions, where should they do that?
Yeah, best place is Instagram. I'm at the Henry Washington on Instagram, or go to my website, henrywashington.com.
Right on. Well, hey, man, thanks again. Definitely look forward to chatting again soon.
Thanks so much.
You got to take care. Okay, everyone, that was our episode. A big thank you to Henry for coming on. Super great stuff. Loved the mindset discussion because I think it is so applicable across so many things in life. So as always, if you like the episode, we'd love to hear ratings, feedbacks, reviews from you all. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Happy investing.